everyone. This is Elaine from Anabella's. Welcome to Tuesday Tidbits. This is a brand new segment that we will be bringing to you each week on Tuesdays. And basically, it's just going to be some tips and tricks and little tidbits and maybe some cross-stitch hacks of little things that I've picked up along the way that I think might make your cross-stitch journey a little more fun, and give you some options and some ideas when it comes to starting and completing and finishing your cross-stitch projects. So today what I thought I would do is show you two different ways of starting your cross-stitch project. I'm calling it loops and tails. So I tend to use the loop method when I begin my project. So let me go ahead and show you that method first, and then I will also show you the tail method so that you have two options when beginning. So the first thing that I do is I go ahead and cut a piece of my floss, probably, 12 inches. Then what you want to do is you want to take the two ends and bring them together. So there are my two ends, and I want to bring these together. Now, if you have a little bit of fray on any of your ends, before you try to thread your needle, I always take my embroidery scissors and just give it a quick little snip, which gives me a nice clean end and makes it much easier to go ahead and stick these two pieces right through the eye of my needle. So thread your needle, any way that you normally would, whether you use a needle threader or you just kind of, stick it in the hole. All right, let me try that again, because only one went through. That sometimes happens, right? Okay, nope, happened again. So I do use a needle threader every once in a while, and I'll show that to you again on another video. But for today's purposes, I'm just doing that. Okay, so my needle is now threaded, and I have a little end here, both pieces, and then as you can see, I have a nice loop. So the way that I begin with the loop method is you come up through any hole that you're going to start in. So whether it's your center or your top left or your top right, or you've just rethreaded your needle because you changed colors, go ahead and put your needle through the hole, bring it up, but be sure to leave that tail open at the back, that loop. Not the tail, the loop. And then go ahead down into your next hole. And then I very gently, I don't pull it all the way through, flip it over. And then as you can see, I have my loop right here. I want to take my needle and I'm going to stick it through the loop and very gently pull. Okay. Now, when I do that, as you can see, I have a very flat piece of floss. It's laying very flat on my project, and that's what you want. Then I'm going to flip it back over again. I'm going to come back up, and some people will continue now along the entire row and then come back and make finish their X. I go ahead and just anchor that very first stitch. That's a personal method, personal preference. So I've anchored my very first stitch. You can turn it over and you can see how nicely that's anchored. And then you can go ahead and come back up and go ahead and stitch all the way across your row and complete. So that is the loop method. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you as well the tail method so that you have another option when starting your cross stitch projects. So let me frog this. Okay, so for the tail method, what you want to do is you want to take your floss, and this time the way you're going to thread your needle is you're going to take just one end and you're going to stick it through the eye of your needle. Okay, and then you're going to bring your two ends together at the bottom just so that they're, close together. Makes it easier for you to keep your floss even. And then what you want to do is you want to come up again wherever your starting point is. Okay, and go into your second hole and flip it over, and then you want to gently pull so that you have a tail maybe about an inch. I keep it about an inch long. Now, what you need to do is you want to anchor this so that it doesn't pull out. And we're going to do that by maybe doing 5 or 6 stitches across to hide the tail, to anchor it. So what I do, and this is my personal method, is I take my floss, I gently use my finger to lay this down, I come up and over, and I just tuck the floss underneath. There we go. You see that? So it's nice and flat. So let me show you that one more time. There's my tail. I lay it flat. I come up and over, and then I kind of just hold that with my finger. So I'm going to come up and around, anchor that first stitch, very gently come into my, finish my X, flip it over. There's my tail. I want to lay that flat, make sure my floss goes over the top and the tail is underneath. Hold it with my finger, flip back over again. And then I am just going to continue to go across my row. So I'm going to come up and come down, flip it over, make sure that tail is underneath my thread, come up again, go down, flip it over, make sure that tail is flat. And when you're keeping your tail flat, you're keeping it flat horizontally, so it's running along the same path as your stitches. Okay, and there it is again, come up and over, keep it flat horizontally, come back up. Last one before I go across, flip it over. And as you can see, my tail is pretty well anchored. So this is going to be the last stitch that I do going across. And we have 6 stitches now. My tail is nice and secure. I am not going to snip it until I complete my row. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to continue to go ahead and complete this row by completing a full cross stitch. Now, the method that I'm using right now as I'm stitching along is called the in-hand method. So that is how I was taught to cross stitch. I was taught to cross stitch by holding my fabric in my hand for the most part. Now, on future Tuesday Tidbits, I will show you how to stitch using the loop method. I'm sorry, how to stitch using a hoop as well as a Q-snap. And then I will show you more tips and tricks on how to stitch in hand. Now, what you'll notice is that my left hand, this hand that's holding the fabric, is hardly moving at all. It stays very still. All the work that I'm doing is being done with my right hand, which is, I'm right-handed, and that's the way I hold my needle, with my right hand. Okay, so there we go. That is now, my row is complete. Now I'm going to stitch it over, flip it over, and as you can see, there's my tail. It's nice and anchored. So I feel very comfortable at this point taking my scissors. You want a sharp pair of embroidery scissors, and you want to cut the thread as close as you can to your stitches without cutting the stitches itself. And there you go, nice and flat. That is the tail method, and that is your second option when starting your cross stitch. So I hope you've enjoyed this little Tuesday tidbit. I do look forward to seeing you every week, and I will see you again next Tuesday. Now, if there are some hacks or some tips that you would like to see, please be sure to leave me a comment below. I will be reading them and taking them into consideration so that I can always bring you the tidbits and the tips and tools that you really are looking for the most. Thank you so much for tuning in to Anabella's. Thank you for subscribing to my channel, ringing the bell so that you will get updates whenever there is a new video released. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you on Friday for FlossTube. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.